Right now I want to bring out this incredible array of creative talent. Sierra Teller Ornelas, co-creator, showrunner, executive producer. Come on down. Ed Helms, co-creator, and Nathan Rutherford. Representation for the white man really going through it. That's what I'm saying. Jana Schmieding, who plays Reagan Wells. Leigh, who is Bobby Yang, my idol. And Dustin Milligan, who is journalist Josh Carter. Thank you all for being here. Oh, it's going to be cozy. We're doing just, all right.
Come on in.
I get my own chair by myself. I did insist on that. So the dance. Can we talk about the dance? Is this something you had pictured, like for Sierra, just starting? Like I could talk about the dance, the whole panel. Maybe we could do that.
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, before I start, my name is Sierra Teller Ornelas. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation. I'm Edgewater clan, born for the Mexican clan. Thank you so much for having us here. This was like, oh my God. I haven't been in a movie theater for 3 years. So because of COVID, I haven't been in a movie theater for 3 years. And so like seeing this here with you guys is like beyond incredible. So thank you. Yeah, one of the things that we always talked about with Mike Schur and Ed about comedy and sitcoms is how wonderful it is. I remember Mike talked about how on Parks, Ron Swanson has a joke about having 3 ex-wives named Tammy. And that was just like a joke. It wasn't like they were setting up. And then it became like 4 different episodes where you meet all of his wives who are named Tammy and then his mom who's named Tammy. And that's like my favorite thing about writing for sitcoms is one joke can turn into like a story point. And so I think it's episode 2 of season 1, Terry's character, played by Michael Grey Eyes, is dressing down Regan, and he's like, do you know how much wood I've chopped? How many dirty dancing classes I've taught? And she's like, what is this now? And it was just like weird, and Michael is a trained dancer, and I was just like, he just has I was like, in the 80s, he would have been like a Patrick Swayze type, I just felt. And so season 1, we were like, if we get a season 2, he's doing the dance from Dirty Dancing. And then meeting his wife, played by Kimberly Guerrero, she just seemed like a pageant queen. I was like, there's no way they didn't pull that out at like every party. And so we just kept like jokingly putting it in, like, and then he'll do the dance from Dirty Dancing. And it's just like a line in a script, but then they trained, like, Kimberly's not a dancer, and they freaking nailed it. It was like amazing. And I remember before Ed was like, am I gonna ruin everyone's day by interrupting this like beautiful moment in Indigenous history, the first time this has ever been done?
I mean, I ruined the moment in the story, but I also feel kind of like I ruined the moment in the world, like in life, because it's just such a glorious moment.
We were like crying in Video Village, and Ed's like, I'm gonna ruin Indian country, like I'm the worst. But we were like, no, and then it pivots into this really funny thing. So when we heard all of you guys laugh, I was like, thank God, because it's gonna work. But no, it was one of those moments where it's just something Native people never get. Like we never get Dirty Dancing moments. We never get like these, because we love pop culture as much as everyone else, and it was so gratifying to see them do it and then to have it on the show.
Okay, so just pitch for season 3, just putting it out there. I have seen all of season 2, and you did not put Michael Grey Eyes in a remake of Roadhouse. So if we're gonna keep going with this.
I will say, Jana, back me up, Roadhouse is a res classic. Like,
absolutely.
My cousins have reenacted whole scenes from Roadhouse for no reason.
Well, see, that's a whole episode. You're welcome. I gave you, see, the season 3 through line, now we know what it's, because NBC's better renew it. I'm just saying, like, that has to happen. Speaking of, just pivoting off of what Sierra said, Jana, like, obviously Reagan is very, capable, maybe too capable professional woman, and her professional career is really motoring. But one of the many things I loved about season 3 is there's a real rom-com vibe to a lot of what happens to Reagan, and I wonder, you're a writer on the staff as well, so how did that come about? Like, was it just a natural progression for the character?
I think, I attribute a lot of the rom-comminess of season 2 to Sierra because she is a real fan of the genre. I personally, like, I'm not, but I I was happy to fulfill that dream of Sierra's, and honestly, I think getting to play, I mean, no spoilers, but Dallas Goldtooth plays a new love interest for Reagan. So there is sort of this love triangle that evolves between Reagan and Nelson, who Dallas plays, and Josh eventually. And so it was really exciting to get to do that. We haven't seen Native love on TV. We haven't seen Native romance. And so to be able to embody that and sort of celebrate that Native people have love. We don't just have trauma. We don't just have sadness, and you know, we're not just constant. You know, we're political beings, but we're also loving beings, and we are part of families. And so that was really fulfilling for many reasons.
Well, I'm a TV obsessive. I mean, obviously, all of us are here partly because of that. We all are. There's an episode coming up this season where I just wish I could have sat in the writer's room for the week that you broke Adirondack season 3, because there's a show on TV which, surprisingly, this will be a real revelation to you. There's a show within the show that is made by white people that does like a truly horrendous job of even attempting to depict elements of Native cultures. So was that just like a career's worth of, like, for the writing staff and the creative team, was it like, oh, we're putting this in there? Like, was everyone just putting all their stuff out there of what they did, like what they wanted to make fun of and kind of draw attention to as being negative?
Can I answer that? Okay, well, you co-wrote it, so it's like one of my favorite episodes. Yeah, Adirondack is a show that like everyone's parents watch throughout season 2, so there's constant references to Adirondack season 3. Jana's dad is just watching it the entire episode on an iPad, and he like never speaks. And so eventually they get an invitation to be cultural consultants. And yeah, I think part of being a Native person who's also making media, or sometimes not, you're constantly being asked to help fix these sort of terrible non-Native made works. And you know, season 1, we got asked a lot of questions about what is the state of, you know, Native representation, and it's such a hard question because it's like not good, you know, like pretty easy to answer. And so this was sort of our response, I think, to like a lot of those questions. I also think it kind of came from a lot of, whenever we talk about something like repatriation, we have to like, you know, find an expert on that and ask a bunch of questions, or there's just a lot of legwork. Our production design team, our art department worked so hard to keep everything very like authentic. And we were like, God, if we worked on one of these shows, you could just like phone it in. And this was like the easiest episode, I feel like, for them, because they just went to like every prop house to get these random items. But yeah, it was like the absurdity of the Native experience, and I feel like it doesn't get more absurd than when you have to work on one of those shows.
I will say, I will add that, like, for me as a writer on the show and also, you know, performer, it was really fun and sort of, as a writer of this episode, it was sort of my homage to Native writers who are in Hollywood, and a little shout out to them. Like, we've all kind of gone through this like consulting, the consulting industrial complex for, you know, white showrunners, where they won't staff us as writers, but they will bring us on to underpay us as consultants and help with very complex things like language and costumes and like things that are so sensitive. And so they rely on like one Indigenous person to answer these very intensely specific questions. And so Terry and Reagan go and consult on this TV show, Adirondack, and it's like, you know, it's super problematic. And but yeah, it like it is sort of my like my love letter to Native writers, to be like, we see you, we know it, we know what you had to do.
It's also a chance too to like share a lot of, I think, like inside jokes. Like Jana has one of my favorite lines where they land on a studio lot and they're walking the lot, and she was like, this is where Adam Beach dies in every movie. Like, why are we here? So just like an opportunity to do a lot of those jokes, which we always kind of do in the room. So yeah.
My favorite part of the episode, though, is like, I literally had this experience. They talked to 3 different EPs, but they're all the same guy. Like, you can't tell them apart.
They're all played by John Barinholtz, and we just like changed a hat and like a plaid shirt.
All white men look the same.
I sometimes go to the TCA press tour, and I'm like, I can't, all these guys who have the same glasses that J.J. Abrams wears, I can't tell them apart. Which one? Did I talk to this one? I can't remember. There's I feel like Ed, your character, so much of, the show is about change. What is the story we tell ourselves of who we are as a community or as a person? And your character really embodies so much of that. It's a very different Nathan this season. And what was it like to kind of embrace that? Or, I actually rewatching the season premiere, you do such a brilliant job in the writing and in the performances of saying, we do change, but do we? It's very much a stop-start, non-linear process. So what was that like?
Well, I think that's, any of us who have tried to confront our blind spots or our, difficulties or conflicts that we have in our lives, we very often, no matter how hard we work, we so often find ourselves just stumbling back into these patterns. And I know that is very familiar for me, and I've played lots of characters over the years, from Andy Bernard to Stu in The Hangover, who struggle to be the better person that they want to be. And I think Nathan is another slightly more nuanced version of that. And I had such a blast with this season in particular because season 1 of Rutherford Falls for Nathan was a kind of a very familiar character for me, in that he was making so many bad decisions and some really egregiously bad decisions. In this season, this episode, you see him make another really huge blunder, but he's already ahead of it. He's already kind of catching it. And then for the rest of this season, we're in this a little bit of a different place with Nathan, or Nathan's in a little bit of a different place. That was really fun for me to explore, because there's a little more confidence in him and a little more sort of he's sort of settled into he's found a little more affection for himself, and a little bit more tolerance for his own misgivings. And this is something that I struggle with in life, and so I love to kind of bring that to characters. But I just have had so much fun this season with Nathan, and I think it's different. And this episode is a heightened version, but you're gonna see in the rest of the season him kind of settle into a very, I hope, very funny but also kind of confident place.
Well, to me, it's a mixture of confidence and vulnerability. And an interesting thing for me in the show is the journeys of Reagan and Nathan and their relationship to their own confidence and their own pushing forward. Because I feel like in season 1, Nathan was I know who I am, I get it, I'm the guy, And I feel like Reagan's really coming into her own more in season, but there's still a balance in the friendship. I mean, maybe talk a little bit about that, the friendship depiction, and even in Sierra, if you want to chime in too, there's what you wrote the relationship to be. There's the two performers that are bringing that relationship to life, and then bringing it into the second season in this changed arena for both of them. Was it kind of easier this season because you kind of knew them already, or were there some challenges to work out?
Well, I will just say quickly that I think one of the really cool things about this show is that it's kind of a friend romance, like the friendship between Reagan and, I shouldn't even say the word romance. That's not the right.
You're saying bromance, even
yeah,
though it's not
a
gross.
bromance between a man and a woman. But I think that the support that these characters give one another is what enables, it enables them to kind of take this to grow in the positive ways that they do. There's still so many stumbles, and there's ways that they mess up, but I think it's that affection between these two characters that gives them something to grow from.
Yeah, it's like a buddy comedy, and I think it's hopeful in a way that we are excited to see these friends see each other through very deep, trying times in their lives, you know, including a huge identity crisis. And I think that we are kind of in a culture right now where it's so easy to exemplify dismissing each other and, you know, just walking away from a friendship. And I think that they have such a long history together, and so it's fertile ground to play with, and it's fun to watch them struggle together and to support each other through trying times.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add that I think I always saw the show as like two nerds against the world. They had so many, you know, similarities in terms of their interests and their backgrounds, and that to me, a lot of the conflict came from like systemic issues, that person to person, they were able to have this deep friendship. And I think one character was probably more aware of that than the other. And now that we've sort of blown up Nathan's legacy, watching him sort of as an underdog really try to carve out, okay, if I'm not all of these things, then who am I? And then Reagan leveling up, what does success look like for me? How do I navigate that? It really lended itself to that friendship growing, I think, stronger and just really funny and being able to bounce off of each other. There's a huge romance arc for Ed's character as well, and it's like they're both going through so many similar things in a really fun way this year.
I want to do so many spoilers about that, but a drone from NBC will like fly into the room and like laser shoot me. So, Jesse, huge season for Bobby Yang. Can you talk a little bit about that? It's so huge, and I'm so excited, and I just want to know, when you were reading scripts, were you like, I'm excited, I'm terrified, help, yes, I want this, help. Yeah. What was your...
Before we started season 2, I had drinks with Sierra, and she brought forth the idea that Bobby Yang would run for mayor of Rutherford Falls.
Spoiler alert.
Get ready, buckle in.
Have our first spoiler dropped.
And I was completely shook. I was like, are you kidding? Do you really trust me with this? And yeah, it's such an amazing arc this season for Bobby. As much as I miss playing Ed's executive intern.
/ associate director.
Bobby has really big shoes to fill this season, and it's such an amazing arc, and such a great way to start Pride Month. Hello. Woo! Yeah.
Jesse crushes it for the whole season.
Absolutely.
Arrest me.
Thank you. Yeah, this AAPI month / Pride Month cusp I have going on right now. Like, I'm glowing, I feel like.
They are glowing!
You are crushing all of it. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
And I do really, I'm just, yeah. I want to, I have so many more questions, but I do want to talk about a little bit, just because it is, yay, Pride. What has been the reaction to Bobby Yang and, you know, the amazing awesomeness that they bring to our world?
I've received many DMs and many tweets just from the gender non-conforming community, the non-binary community, the trans community, just thinking that there's a character like Bobby Yang on screen who is not bogged down by, you know, a traumatic past or a traumatic upbringing, but instead we see a character that is flourishing and who is living their best life. And I think it's really an exciting time for the non-binary community on screen. Yeah.
I mean, let's be real, but Bobby Yang has it the most together of any character on the show. Like, if we're talking about, you know, speaking of characters who totally have it together, Josh is representation for me that I appreciate. It's the journalist that a lot of people are mad at. I feel that deeply in my soul. It's like the representation that I see, journalists people are mad at, but is probably still a good person, maybe, possibly. Can you talk about season 2, Josh, Dustin, and just how that was? It's a tricky time to be interacting with people who you just did a big journalism thing about, and they have feelings about, they have thoughts.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because Josh is the outsider to Rutherford Falls. He's the one who is, in some ways, you know, like the audience is looking in at this incredibly fun, colorful sort of fishbowl of this town, but very much is looking at it as a fishbowl, as this kind of contained thing that is sort of has these oddities and these interesting things. But in some ways, I think he came into it in season 1 with this idea of like, I know what this town is about. I know what the story is going to be that I'm trying to, frankly, extract out of it. And while he does have really good intentions, I think he let his overeducated, you know, white wokeness kind of get the best of him, and in a lot of ways he missed, I think, some of the heart of what was really going on there. And in season 2, I think what was so lovely is that we see that there are some regrets there. He does have mixed feelings about it, and he's realizing that this idea, I mean, similarly to, I think, the identity exploration that every character is going through on the show, Josh is no different in that he really is realizing that the choices he made, him pursuing this idea of what it means to be a journalist, what it means to be sort of the one who's getting the story right and like doing it the quote-unquote correct way, but in some sense is still kind of being a tourist to this small town America and extracting what he needs from it to go back to his, you know, NPR Brooklyn world. I think in a lot of ways he's realizing that all of these ideas of who he thought he was going to be, they're not satisfying him, they're not fulfilling him. And as, again, no spoilers, but as we go through the season, it's quite clear that there is something about Rutherford Falls that is calling to him, or more specifically, someone that is calling to him, and he can't help but, I think, at least take the steps to start to answer that call. And what I hope for this character, as much as he is kind of like a likable guy, right? He's likable, right? As much as I think he's a likable guy with a lot of very easy to spot flaws, I think he's really coming around, and my hope is that if we do get a season 3, we're gonna get a season 3, right? Is that that realization and essentially him leading with his heart and like everybody else on the show, kind of defining himself for himself will come to fruition.
I have to ask too, not just you, but so Dustin, other people in the cast, you've been involved in scenes with Michael Gray. As we're going to talk about, he's not here, but we're going to talk about him because, you know, he's great.
He's a legend.
He's a legend, but like, I often think about what must it be like to be on the receiving end of like Terry fully cranked up to intensity level 11. Like what is that like? I'm so like, do you ever? I mean, Dustin, you experienced it most intensely in season 1.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that. It was episode 4, I think, of season 1, and that was something where look, working on the show is such a privilege in so many ways, not just because of the incredible sort of what's on the page itself, which you guys are all able to experience what that is and how much of a celebration of joy this show really is. But the show itself, working on it, is also that. I know a lot of people say that thing about, oh, it's like a family. I love going to work. Everyone's like, and that's bullshit almost all the time.
Thank you. Somebody said it.
Yeah. Almost always it's bullshit. Except this time. This time, it really is something, and it's a credit to Mike and Sierra and Ed for the environment that they created from the very beginning, where they not only wanted the show to work, but wanted the experience itself to be one that was meaningful, because ultimately that translates, right? And so this episode, episode 4, specifically, is so beautifully written already. It was already just such an incredible thing. I remember reading the script and just being like, holy shit, this is like, this dressing down that Josh gets. it was so incredible, and I was so excited to play because I'm just like, yeah, tell him, like, tell this guy. But then actually being there on set, and for me personally, just having an understanding as much as I can of how important that moment was, not just because of what was going to end up on screen, but because of being on a Hollywood lot in Los Angeles, on a studio, like a big network show. There's so much money, I mean, not like, there could be more money, right? But there was so much, I don't want the network to think that we need to tighten anything, but just and to see, to be on the receiving end of Michael tapping into his well of his entire life experience and so many people from his community and the performing arts community, and there's just so much that I could see him drawing on, and then watching him interact with Sierra as she would come in and give notes, and our director, and just seeing this, for me, as far as I understood it, I had never seen that before, and I don't know that it had ever really happened before. We had seen these incredible Indigenous creatives coming together and making this specific point on, again, like a studio lot in a studio show. It was groundbreaking, and add on top of that how incredible Michael is as a performer, how deeply he was digging, and so much that he was giving. I had a very difficult time not breaking down. I mean, I was supposed to kind of be the dickhead in that scene, and I had a hard time not just being like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, there was actually a note that I had to take, was like, we need you to push back on him a little bit more, because I just was like, I agree with you, Michael. Like, I love you. And I mentioned this before, but I went home, and you're covered in makeup. I went home from that, and I got in the shower, and I just wept because it hit me so much how powerful that moment was, and I hope it resonated. I mean, obviously you guys are all here to watch it. I'm assuming you all watched season 1. I hope it resonated, because that really was something that very quietly, I think, was a fucking first. And you guys did that. And I know you asked a question about Michael. He also, who couldn't be here, he did that. And it was such a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm so grateful for it. Not only a high in my career, but a high in my life. I won't ever forget that. I talked a long time. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, I've interviewed Sierra before, and we talked about how, designing women, like there was this raft of shows that you watched growing up where it was funny and they were well made and great characters, great actors, but there was also this social element, or the issues of the day. And is that something that you and the writers look forward to? Like, what can we give Mike? What can we give Terry? Because he's so committed in those moments. And what's funny, like, he can play the comedy, and like you all can. I mean, maybe. First of all, the two-part question, I guess. Do you look for opportunities to give characters in general, especially Michael or any other character, those kind of really meaty monologues? And then they are so intense, and all the characters have had moments of intense emotion, or social, expressing a social idea, or something that they believe in. But also you've got to balance that with the comedy. So is that hard?
I mean, I think we don't set out like, okay, now we got to get a monologue in here. You know what I mean? Because I think that would feel like really forced. Mike sure loves monologues. He just loves them. I love montages, and so we fight about how many montages I can put in and how many monologues he can put in.
Can you put like a bunch of monologues into a montage?
Maybe we'll just voice over montages. But so Mike was really pushing for those as we were writing them, and we wrote the first 5 or 6 season 1 before we cast. And we're like, God, I hope we can find a guy who can do monologues. Because if not, we're kind of screwed. And then Michael came in, and he has this sort of like weird Obama energy to him, where it's like very kind, but it's also like, don't fuck with me. And he was just able to kind of play. And I think, he has said in interviews that Terry says the things that our parents had to whisper. you know? And I feel like there's something really powerful about that he really is this mouthpiece for a lot of our feelings. Like, we went to the Indian Gaming Conference, IGA, and we showed that clip, and there were a lot of people in the audience who hadn't seen, all Native audience who had not seen the show, and you could just feel the energy off of getting to say the thing that we are always feeling. And so I think when we have a moment in our show where we really feel like we are compelled, and a lot of the Native writers will have opinions on something, we're like, okay, this feels like a fertile opportunity to do that. And I think Michael himself he's been waiting for an opportunity like this for many years. I think that he is probably one of the most seasoned Native actors on our show, and has had to be the cultural consultant, has had to use a third of his brain for quality control and for, you know, diplomacy and PR. And the idea, especially in that scene where you had a Navajo director, you had me on set, he just doesn't have to do that. He gets to just act. And it's like, what a gift for everybody when all you have to do is act as your job. And so he really is just one of the most giving, incredible people to work with, and really believes in the show and loves, like he always says, he's like, I'm in a comedy orchestra and I'm like just starting, and that Ed and Jana have really, but I feel like this season especially, everyone was just firing on all cylinders, and it's really been beautiful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you all built on the first season really beautifully, and you went in some directions I didn't expect, which is always what you want. You know, you don't want the same thing over again. I think, you know, you have even more Native writers this season. I mean, there was always, you know, at least half, and now the writers' room is pretty dominated by Native.
We lost one and we gained two
Okay.
this season, so it's, yeah, pretty much.
And I think one thing I really love about, I mean, the show's funny, it's heartwarming, there's romance, there's dancing, which is really what I'm looking for. But also that you're not presenting a monolithic idea of this town, who's in the town, but also of the Native voices in the show. I think there's, I hope it's not a spoiler, but there's a discussion of the issue of the pretendian, if you will, at some point in the season. And I think what was great about that was that it was really nuanced. It wasn't just one thing about like how there are real feelings that it's a hot button issue of, you know, someone who, let's just say, put it this way, I'll try to not get killed by the, you know, the drone of death for spoilers. How would you like to describe that episode?
We discussed the concept of identity appropriation in an episode, and Terry has a monologue that is one of Michael's favorite this season, and I think that was an issue that was just very much in the zeitgeist of Indian country, and there were a lot of moments coming out, and people really affected. I think one of the hardest things about the Native experience is identity. Jan, I remember you saying, like, in communities, it's either you're not doing enough or you're doing it wrong. So we're constantly in this feeling of, like, you know, am I enough? Am I this? And to have these moments where people have just completely committed fraud, but also to have people who have very complicated origin stories, it got really messy and it got really complicated. And so we were like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this in a very nuanced way, because I think, you know, there's a line in there that a friend of mine, when we were talking about it, he's like, genocide is messy. And I was like, yeah, you're right, it is. And so we wanted to talk about that in a comedic way, but also, I always say, like, the Native experience for me constantly is absurdity. It feels absurd, you know, and inherent. And I feel like that was a moment in our experience last year where we were like, it feels like we have to talk about it, because it was coming up so much and had impacted people in very different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you guys did a great job with it. I just, you know, and I think what a great aspect of it is, yes, you know, in that monologue, points are made. I did wonder if that actor and the other actor in the scene maybe needed a Xanax later, because I would have been faced with the full Michael experience.
One of my favorite moments of season one was there's a monologue where Terry's dressing down a lawyer, and Nathan and Bobby are sitting at the table. And I remember Ed being like, I just want to try some improvs of like how we exit. And the one we use is you're like, go, 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 and like get out of here. And I remember thinking on the day, like, that's so weird. And then I watched it, I was like, this is perfect. But like capturing that energy.
I have to also add you watch Michael on screen and you're like, oh, what an amazing actor. But when you know Michael the person, you really like you have no idea how good an actor he is, because Michael the person is like the goofiest, kind of like light, like so jovial and optimistic, and then he comes on screen and he just has all this gravitas, and it's really, I don't know, it's just a testament to his acting ability, but also like he's clearly tapping into something very real and personal to him. But it's just, I love that contrast. He's just the sweetest, goofiest guy. I had a similar experience meeting, I'm going to name drop here, Pierce Brosnan for the first time. The guy is the goofiest, like just, you think he's stoned. He's like giggling and you're like, you're James fucking Bond. Like, aren't you more intense than this? He's not. He is just a goofball. Michael's kind of the same way.
I will also add that, like, I call Michael Uncle Mike because he, like, drops dad jokes all day. He thinks he's so funny with his dad jokes, and they're all so corny. It's the best. But he had a film come out. He was, starred in a film called Wild Indian during the pandemic. I don't know if anybody's seen that. It's an amazing film, and he plays the most intense killer. And at one point, he like chokes somebody, like almost to death. A stripper, almost to death, like in a utility closet. And he's just like, grrr, and I was like, Uncle Mike, no! He has range, okay?
Yeah, he really has range. But that's one of the things I loved, and when everyone gets to be a lot of different things on this show, and he's an incredibly cringe dad. Like, I love that his teens are like, oh, you're the worst. They don't care. They're not impressed by him at all. That's so it's so multifaceted, all the characters that you've all brought to life. Speaking of that, when do we do audience I forgot to sort of, do we need to do audience questions soon, or when are we doing that? Right now? Okay. Wait, okay,
10
let me
minutes
do
ago.
one little quick one. I just want to talk, there are new characters. You talked about Dallas Goldtooth. Can you talk a little bit about the new folks coming in to season 2 and what they are bringing, and what the thoughts there were?
Yeah, Dallas Goldtooth plays Nelson. He is sort of kind of like a know-it-all, finicky native guy. He's based on my Uncle Belvin, who saw the episode, was like, don't you just hate guys like that? I was like, really, Uncle Belvin? But kind of, there's a lot of different types of Native people at Native academia, and I feel like he fills this trope of someone who's like very smart, but also thinks he like knows everything and just really kind of gets Regan's goat, and she kind of can't stand him, but maybe she likes him, I don't know. And Dallas Goldtooth, who was Spirit on Reservation Dogs and has been in the comedy troupe 1491s, is just the loveliest human being and so wonderful, and we're so happy to have him. Ganadillo Horn, who you saw playing Feather Day, is going to be joining us as well, a possible adversary for Bobby's character running for mayor. And yeah, I thought, like, she is so funny. You've seen her on Letterkenny. She played Deer Woman on Reservation Dogs as well. And she's someone who I've always just been a huge fan of. I saw her in a Jeff Barnaby short called The Colony. And she just has incredible comedic timing. And I just loved the idea of the only person that could really get Michael's goat, Terry's goat, is a Native woman. So she's sort of the foe of this season.
She's great. Yeah, it's so fun, you guys. I just want to live there. Can I live there? When does this theme park come online?
So it's if you take the Universal Studios tour, you go right by Courthouse Square. That's Rutherford Falls. You can probably hop off the tour and just start living there.
I mean, I might do that. Who knows? Who can say? Let's take some questions. Okay, enough time for 2 questions. Okay, no pressure to anyone asking a question. Go right there in the front row, someone? Hi.
is it right here. We are bonding for the first time today.
We had a fry bread night at my house. My aunt brought like a bunch of lamb from Navajo Nation, and we like made. And I've never seen Ed Helms eat more in one sitting. It was amazing.
It was delicious.
So we've had moments like that, and I will feel like set. A lot of times people just like go to their trailers and hide, and I feel like this is a show I've worked on where like everyone wants to hang out and everyone wants to talk and see how people are doing and pitch on jokes. Like Ed will pitch on other people's jokes in the scene. Like it is really a warm environment.
Yeah, and we also had the writers' room this season was all virtual, but it was like, I think, therapy for, at least for me, like just being able to go to that every day and hang out with people that I think are hilarious and like thoughtful and brilliant. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, we've done both seasons through the pandemic, so this is all we know. And it's like this experience right now is super joyous because we get to share it with an audience, and we just haven't really had the opportunity yet to sort of celebrate with each other because of the pandemic. And so I think like we have, as natives do, made the best out of the worst and really come together to support each other, and just, you know, we are, for better or worse, a family. We're stuck with each other. But we do really enjoy working together, and we also, I think, do the sort of invisible labor, all of us, of making sure that we feel cool on set and that we're keeping it light and keeping it fun, because when we go home, we're faced with, you know, the world.
Yeah, it is such a comfortable set, and that's due to the people on top, Sierra and Ed and Mike, and we really all do get along, and we do get tested like every day. So we kept to ourselves, and we like had little pods, and we would go out occasionally like for drinks on like a Friday. But just us.
Yes, that young lady.
Yeah, I think that a lot of shows have depicted native casinos as just like blind capitalism, and they're the worst people. And when you actually go into community and meet a lot of people who are working there, there is this thing called tribal capitalism, which is to earn money and to benefit the nation as a whole. And so there are certain native nations who have like boards of directors, and their directives are based on traditional beliefs. You have people who have like, you know, bought mountains to keep them from being strip mined. And so to me, for casinos and for native, you know, entrepreneurship, it's a much more complicated question. And so even in our writers' room, like you have people who, you know, sold native jewelry when they were 7 and like knocking on doors. And then you have people who give their beadwork away. That's where the Terry Thomas episode came from. And so what we really wanted to do was have a character like Terry who is blind and ambitious and feels that way for a reason and have real intention, but also have characters like Reagan that are like, I don't like Elon Musk, I don't like billionaires, like I don't like any of this, you know? And so, to me, that's like a conversation that we constantly have within Indian country that we kind of wanted to share, that nuance versus just like, this is good and this is bad.
Well, I think, who's the...
Can we do one more? He's wearing a Rutherford Falls t-shirt, which I didn't even know existed.
Yes!
It's amazing.
Please, if it's cool with the... Oh, gosh, there's a time thing. Did not know the time thing was there, but like, can we do one last question?
First, my question, where did you get that shirt?
Online? Oh.
Never thought to do that.
Has Mike Schur set up like a little secret shop?
Oh, I hope so. That son of a bitch.
He needs the money. I mean, come on. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I think it like comedy tennis to hit the ball back and forth. Yes, yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I think Michael is such a he's all about craft, and he's all about his experience as an actor and being there and supporting his partner. And I think there was this day on set where, we were telling him, like, can you pace it up? Because, like, faster's funny and stuff. And he did the take again, and he was like, I was like, same take. So I came in and was like, just want to reiterate the note. And he was like, no one has ever asked a native actor to speak faster before. So he was like, so I just need a minute to process what I'm doing. And I was like, totally, got you. And so, like, he was like, this is the most scenes I've done indoors in a suit. There was just like a lot of that sort of to get used to. And I think you really see him come alive in season 2, because he wasn't sort of unlearning a lot of that stuff that so many native actors have been forced. I mean, Kimberly on set was talking about how she was like, I'm just so happy I get to live at the end of this episode. She was like, so many dramas I'm on, and she started doing like hair pulling and stunts, and she's practically a stunt woman just because, and like her first role was playing Winona in Seinfeld, and hadn't done a comedy until we cast her as Renee, his wife. So it is just like kind of testament to sort of the sort of training that people have had, but then also when you get an opportunity, you knock it out of the park.
I just want to add about the way that Michael acts. I think that a lot of dramatic actors have trepidation coming into a comedy space, but what Michael did so brilliantly was just to trust his instincts and not try to be funny, and to kind of trust that we were creating a funny world and funny lines, and what you find, I had this experience too on Cedar Rapids with Isaiah Whitlock, who is a brilliant actor and known for some heavy stuff, but when you just commit, no matter your acting background, if you just commit to what's on the page and trust the team you're with, chances are it's going to work. And I really give Michael a ton of credit for not sweating it. I know he was nervous, but he just didn't try too hard, and he kind of let it work. And now I think he's found this very funny vein in himself that is so fun to watch. And yeah, he's really popping.
You all are. Thank you all so much. Thank you. All of the clapping. I just want to say all episodes of season 2 drop on June 16th on Peacock. We love Peacock. Where are you, Peacock? Stand up if you're here. It's a great show, and you're going to love the second season. And thanks, everyone, for being here.
Thank you so much, Mo. Mo Ryan, ladies and gentlemen.